Hey, how's it going? Zach D Productions here, and I am here with a list video for you guys. So for this list, I'll be going over 15 of my favorite movies of all time. Now, this will probably be my last video of 2023, so I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. So this list is in no particular order, and keep in mind, this is not a top 15 necessarily. These are just 15 of some of my favorite movies of all time. So let's go ahead and get started with this list. Now, the first one I'm going to start off with here is Rambo First Blood, with, of course, Sylvester Stallone. I really love this movie. I've always really dug this one, even back in the day when I was younger. And yeah, I mean, I've always liked it ever since I first watched it. You know, the whole sequence when Rambo is getting questioned by the authorities and they bring him in and he has to escape, and you know, that whole showdown in the woods and everything, it's all cool. This movie has a lot of great things going for it, and I would say it's an essential action movie. If you claim to love action, have not seen this yet, definitely check this one out. So Rambo First Blood. Next, we have The Transporter with Jason Statham. And this is probably my favorite Jason Statham movie, to be honest. I know it's a fan favorite for a lot of people as well when we're talking about Jason Statham and his movies. But yeah, one thing that I do like about this film is that it's not too long. I mean, I would rather a film be too short than too long. That's just for me personally. But yeah, I definitely appreciate the runtime of this movie. You could say not too long, not too short either. I think the length of the movie is, you could say, perfect. But yeah, this is where Jason Statham really became an action star, you could say. Like, this is what really made his career skyrocket. So overall, really great movie. Always really liked the first Transporter film. Definitely great. Next, we have Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise. And as you can see, this is actually the Steelbook edition, which is pretty nice. But yeah, the first Jack Reacher movie, I've liked this movie ever since I first watched it. This movie was actually filmed in my city, which is pretty cool. Probably my favorite film that's ever been filmed in my city, to be honest. But, of course, Tom Cruise, I mean, he's a legend. And this is maybe my favorite Tom Cruise movie, maybe. I don't know. It's really tough because I do also like the Mission Impossible films, and I do like the Top Gun films as well, but I think his performance is top-notch in this movie. Absolutely fantastic. So the first Jack Reacher movie, really dig this one. There is some drama, there is some suspense, there's some action, of course, and if you're a fan of any of that stuff, definitely check out Jack Reacher. So the first Jack Reacher. Next, we have Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Really great movie, and maybe my favorite Van Damme movie as well. I mean, it's really hard to pick a favorite movie of his because I really do like Hard Target, and I do like Bloodsport as well. But Kickboxer, I don't know. I went with this movie because, well, I mean, it's great. I mean, it's a great film. There's just no other way around it. It's definitely a classic. And yeah, if you like martial arts movies and if you like Jean-Claude Van Damme, definitely check out this film. Definitely one of his best films, without a doubt. So next, we have a Scott Adkins movie who I think is a very underrated actor, to be honest. And this is probably my favorite Scott Adkins movie as well. And this is Ninja 2: Shadow of a Tear, which I do think is a step up from the first film. I do like the first film, actually, but the second film is definitely better. I would say it's a lot better, actually. But yeah, definitely more brutal, I would say. It's more grounded. It does have a more emotional story. So yeah, overall, really dig this movie. Ninja 2: Shadow of a Tear. If you haven't seen this one, I would definitely recommend it. But of course, I would recommend seeing the first one first and then check out the second one. Okay, so next we have GoldenEye, which is probably my favorite James Bond movie, to be honest. Of course, with Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan is maybe my favorite of the Bond actors. Now, When you ask a James Bond fan what is their favorite of the Bond actors, you do get mixed responses. Sometimes you'll get Sean Connery, who I do think is one of the best Bond actors. Sometimes you'll get Roger Moore. Sometimes you'll get Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig I do like. He was the Bond that I was familiar with the most for a number of years, but he's not my favorite personally. But I do like him as Bond, though. But I don't know, there's something about Pierce Brosnan that I just like the most when it comes to the Bond actors. I just think, he has this presence that the other Bond actors don't have or something. But overall, GoldenEye, it's definitely the best of the Pierce Brosnan run of the Bond movies. So, yeah, definitely can't go wrong with GoldenEye. Definitely a classic. So next we have Terminator II, Judgment Day, which is probably my favorite Arnold movie, to be honest. I mean, of course, Arnold is a legendary action star. Definitely one of his best films, and this is probably the best Terminator film as well. It really is. Now, yes, it is lengthy, but, at least the movie's not boring, It's one thing if a movie is long and it's boring, but this movie, it's not that. It is a lengthy movie, but it does keep you invested throughout the entire film. Now, for the longest time, I would have said the first Terminator film was my favorite, but the more that I thought about it, I do think that the sequel, the second one, is a bit of an improvement, I would say, but not by much. They're both great movies for sure. So, of course, Terminator 2, great movie, definitely one of the greatest action flicks of all time. If you have not seen this one, it's definitely worth a watch. There's definitely a lot of iconic scenes in the movie, a lot of iconic one-lines from, of course, Arnold. So, yeah, Terminator 2, great film. So next, we have Itman with Donnie Yen. And this is, of course, the first one, which is definitely the best of the Itman movies. And in my opinion, Itman should have stopped after 3. I don't think the fourth one needed to exist, to be honest. Didn't really care for that movie. Now, I used to kind of like it when I first watched it, but the more that I thought about it, the more time I gave thinking about it, it's really not that great of a film, and it didn't really need to exist, to be honest. But the first Itman movie is great. It's a great movie. It's a great martial arts movie. If you love martial arts movies, this is definitely a must-see. I mean, of course, Donnie Yen, his performance, he's trying to basically deliver the life of the real-life Itman, the late Itman, who was actually the martial artist that trained Bruce Lee, for those who don't know. So, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. Lots of emotion to it. Lots of cool martial arts fights and everything. And, yeah, I believe Donnie Yen also choreographs his own fight scenes, which is pretty cool. So, overall, the first Itman movie, I really like this one. And it's also one of my personal favorite Donnie Yen films as well. So, the first Itman movie, it's definitely great, and probably one of the greatest martial arts movies of all time. So next, I knew I wanted to pick a Godzilla movie for this list, which I'm sure will surprise none of you. Now, I wanted to be a little more, I guess you could say, objective with this list rather than subjective, because I think, there realistically would be more than just one Godzilla movie that would make my top 15 movies of all time. But, to be more on the objective side of things, I just went with one Godzilla movie. And that's something that you will notice with this list. I'll choose one movie from a particular franchise. I won't choose more than one. So, which Godzilla movie did I pick for my top 15 movies of all time? I have to go with the first one. The first Godzilla, Gojira. This is a fantastic movie. I pretty much have no complaints with it. This is one of the few movies that I would rate a 10 out of 10, to be honest. I love this movie. I mean, it is one of the greatest films of all time. If you are a film fanatic of any kind, if you love movies, this is definitely a must-watch. Now, this DVD copy does come with King of the Monsters, which is basically an American re-edit version, which, I still prefer the original Gojira, the original Godzilla. The movie is in black and white, which, I think that is actually one of the things that makes this film great, you know, because it does capture that sort of horror element, I think, with the black and white screen of this movie. So overall, it's a fantastic movie, definitely a masterpiece. I mean, this movie is even known as a monster flick masterpiece or whatever. I could definitely see why. It's definitely a masterpiece, definitely a must-watch. And the original Godzilla design is also one of my favorite Godzilla designs as well, so there's that. And even the human characters in this movie, I do like. You do get invested in their stories as well. You know, you do get invested in the conflicts with the human characters and stuff like that, which, you know, those aspects of a Godzilla movie can be kind of hit or miss. I guess it just depends on what the film is, which film it is, but, you know, it's done very well here, and I think it should, since this is the introduction to Godzilla. I mean, Godzilla, as many of you know, is one of the longest running franchises and still popular to this day, still very popular, and it's very deserving of its popularity, I think. But the original Godzilla, great movie for sure, definitely one of my favorites of all time. Okay, so next we have Rush Hour 2. Now, this DVD copy comes with Rush Hour 1 and 2, but the one that I chose for this list is Rush Hour 2. Rush Hour 2, I do think, is the best of the Rush Hour trilogy. Of course, with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, they're both really funny in this movie. I mean, this whole trilogy is just so humorous, really funny. I mean, yeah, a lot of these jokes, you know, they definitely would not get a pass today, you know, because of how sensitive and soft, you know, people have gotten today and everything. It's all ridiculous, but these movies are hilarious. They're absolutely hilarious. Great comedy, action, just great stuff. So Rush Hour 2, I do think it is a step up from the first film. The first film I do think is good, but the second film is even better, I would say. So Rush Hour 2, I decided to include that on the list. Okay, so next we have Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, and of course, probably the greatest Bruce Lee movie of all time, and also one of the greatest martial arts movies of all time. I mean, this movie is awesome. It is an awesome movie, and definitely a martial arts essential movie. I mean, if I had to make a list of... Did I ever make a list of essential martial arts movies? I mean, if I didn't, I would definitely have this on that list. Definitely a great movie, and this is Bruce Lee at his best. May Bruce Lee rest in peace. Probably the greatest on-screen martial artist of all time. Probably. So all in all, Enter the Dragon, great movie for sure. It's iconic, it's a classic, great movie, definitely one of the greatest of all time. Okay, so next we have Rocky, another Sylvester Stallone movie. And this is the first one, and I did decide to go with the first one because, yeah, this is maybe the best, but I'm not sure. I mean, my favorite does go back and forth between this movie, the third film, and the fourth film. But those would be my top three for those who are wondering. I mean, I do like all the Rocky movies, but I do think that 1, 3, and 4 are my favorites. But the first film, it's great. It's a classic, and lots of iconic scenes, of course. So, of course, what can I say? You know, this is more of a drama than it is an action flick, which I'm okay with personally. So, all in all, Rocky, it's a great film. I'm sure no matter who you are, you have at least heard of Rocky. And if you have not seen this movie, definitely check it out. It's a great film. So, Rocky has to be on this list. All right. So, moving on to the last few here. We have John Wick, the original John Wick movie with, of course, Keanu Reeves. And with John Wick, similar to James Bond, like, if you ask one of the fans, like, which your favorite movie or whatever, you do get multiple answers. I know that a lot of people would say the third film. The third film is great, but I would ultimately go with the original, the first John Wick movie. It's great. I mean, this is the start of it after all, of course. It's all because John Wick loses his dog and everything, and, you know, these bad guys, they take his car. And yeah, it's basically just a classic revenge story. And that's one of the things that I do like about John Wick is he's basically a modern day action hero. And in my opinion, you know, action heroes, action stars, despite what people want to say about that scene, that genre, that was one of the peaks of cinema. You know, like I know that there's people that say we should move on from action heroes, action flicks, and everything, but you know, again, like I think it's just one of those things that are just timeless. You know, it's something that I don't think should ever go away, to be honest. You know, and I think, you know, for an action hero flick done in modern times, like John Wick, all the John Wick movies, they're done very well. They are done very well, and this movie is proof of that. So the first John Wick, great movie, and I knew that this would be somewhere in my top 15 favorite films of all time, and probably my favorite Keanu Reeves movie as well. Even though I do like other films of his, like The Matrix and Speed and some others, of course. All right, so next we have Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park movie, and definitely one of the greatest films of all time as well, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure others would say the same. Definitely a great movie. Of course, you know, I do like dinosaurs, and so this movie definitely piqued my interest. So yeah, when I checked it out, really liked it. I mean, I know that with a lot of Jurassic Park fans, there's some people that say you only needed the first film, there never needed to be sequels, and then you have people that say they should have stopped after 3 and they should have never went through with the Jurassic World films. But, you know, I think those films are decent. They're not all bad, you know, at least with the first one in Fallen Kingdom. Dominion, I think it's called, is probably the weakest of the Jurassic World films, but still not bad. But Jurassic Park, the first one, is definitely the best of all the Jurassic films. Definitely the best. Very iconic. So many iconic scenes in this movie for sure. So all in all, a great movie. Definitely one of the greatest of all time. And then lastly, I wanted to throw a superhero / comic book movie for this list as well. So the movie that I went with is Spider-Man 2. And probably the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time as well. I don't care what anyone says. This is better than anything to come from the MCU. It's better than any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films. It's better than any of the Spider-Verse films. I know, blasphemy, right? But it doesn't get any better than this, I would say, at least when we're talking about Spider-Man. It's definitely the best of the live-action Spider-Man films. I mean, what can I say? Lots of iconic moments in this movie. I mean, Doc Ock is the villain in this one, and he is one of the most iconic Spider-Man villains. So, yeah, very cool story as well. You know, you basically have Peter Parker wanting to... There's a part of him that wants to continue being Spider-Man, but there's a part of him that has a hard time balancing the human life, the regular life, and the superhero life. So he gives that superhero life up for a bit, you know, until he's called back into it, of course. So, yeah, overall, a great movie. So, Spider-Man 2, I mean, I would definitely recommend checking out the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy if you have not seen any of these films. Which, if you have not seen any of these films at this point, I mean, what the heck are you doing? You know? Now, the third film, yeah, it's definitely the weakest of the trilogy, but honestly, I'd say it's decent. It's a decent movie, I would say. So, yeah, but the first film I do like, but the second film is even better. It's definitely the best of the trilogy, I would say. So there you have it. That is a list of 15 of my favorite movies of all time. Feel free to let me know what you think, and also Happy New Year to all of you. Again, this will probably be my last video of 2023. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.